I remember Bryant had a 3-part question. So let's move to part 2 of Bryant's question. Do you think there are any non-QBs who can win the Heisman this year? I do. I don't think it's likely. I think you look at the recent history, quarterbacks dominate Heisman Trophy voting. Devontae Smith in 2020, very special case, came out of nowhere if you weren't paying attention. If you were paying attention, you knew Alabama had a bunch of first-round receivers, and yet Devontae Smith was their leading receiver the year before. Derrick Henry, 2015. I don't think there were a lot of great QB options in 2015 other than Deshaun Watson, who's actually who I had number 1 on my ballot that year. But let's say all the quarterbacks kind of wash each other out, or there's no just great quarterback. Ollie Gordon II, I think, is the first name that comes up, the Oklahoma State running back, because this is a guy who was probably the best back in the country last year. If Oklahoma State wins the Big 12, makes the playoff, it's because Ollie Gordon had a great season. It's because he ran for probably between 1,500 and 2,000 yards, maybe more than 2,000 yards. And yeah, I would think he would be very high in the Heisman voting at that point. Travis Hunter at Colorado, because of the two-way part. If he's Colorado's best receiver and Colorado's best corner, you have to consider him. Like, even if Colorado is not very good, you have to consider him, because what kind of, how often do we see players like that? Charles Woodson won the Heisman by being a great corner, by also being a great kick returner, and occasionally being a good wide receiver. But he didn't have huge receiving numbers. Like, Travis Hunter could have monster receiving numbers and be their best corner and be one of the best corners in the country. So, like, even if Colorado's 6-6, if he is that good at receiving, like he has a 1,000-yard receiving season and is their best corner, he's got to be up on ballots. He's got to be. Donovan Edwards at Michigan, I think that's an interesting one, because, the performance has just been kind of up and down. But if you get multiple performances similar to what he did in the national title game, then you're gonna have Donovan Edwards getting votes. Ohio State's interesting. So if you go non-quarterback, you've got the Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins duo at running back. Now, one of those would have to put up just dominant numbers. The other one would not be putting up dominant numbers, most likely, if somebody's putting up Heisman-type numbers. I think ideally, if you're Ohio State, you don't really want one being the bell cow and one not really doing much, because it means you're probably not getting the most out of both. And so, like, ideally, you'd want like each one running for like 1,100 yards. And if that happens, I don't think anybody's stopping Ohio State's offense. I think that's a pretty scary offense, because remember, they also have very good receivers. The receiver who is the most decorated so far at Ohio State is Emeka Buka. But if you talk to people around Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, the freshman, is the one who I think would get the Heisman love if he turns out to be what he's hyped to be. And it sounds like he's not only living up to the hype, he's surpassing it in practice. So I'm excited to see him. We'll talk a little more about him later. A couple guys, Luther Burden III at Missouri, the receiver, Tetairoa McMillan at Arizona, another great receiver. Those are the ones that I would watch as potential non-quarterback Heisman guys. But again, if you said, Andy, is it going to be a quarterback or the field of positions, I'm going to say a quarterback. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.